Hey everyone, and welcome to What Did I Miss, where I, your humble host, just plain and simple Eric, will dive into a theory about who or what caused the burn, which is a major plot point of the third season of Star Trek Discovery. There have been many clues given so far this season, but very little in the way of actual tangible evidence or conclusions. But being a Star Trek fan for over 30 years, I've been able to piece together some clues that I believe point toward an old enemy. Well, maybe old is not the right term, since the beings I'm referring to are the time-traveling Sphere Builders. Introduced in the series Star Trek Enterprise, they are the main antagonists of the third season, and were responsible for one of the most devastating attacks on Earth ever committed, and they didn't even have to leave their own time period to do it. I know that whenever we start talking about time travel, things can get confusing quickly, so I'm going to try to parse this video out into easily digestible sections in case things get weird. First, I will go over who the Sphere Builders are, and what they have already done in the Star Trek universe, which will include briefly talking about their appearances in the Star Trek Online game. Then, I will go over what we do know about the burn so far, which will include some information I went over in my videos about the Episode 8 trailer and Episode 7, and I will link those videos in the description in case you want to hear the whole thing. Finally, I will go over my theory about how this all ties together. So, let's get into it by discussing who are the Sphere Builders. The Sphere Builders are known as a race of trans-dimensional beings that exist primarily in a dimension that is so different than ours that they cannot exist in our normal space without their bodies slowly disintegrating. Because of this, they created large spheres in an area of our space known as the Delphic Expanse that would slowly change it so that their race could exist there. Their ultimate goal was to terraform enough space to be hospitable to them so they could cross over into our universe and conquer it, kind of like the plot of Pacific Rim. I will break that down because I know that is a lot to swallow, but calling them trans-dimensional means that they have the ability to interact with alternate timelines, which are in a sense different dimensions. Think of the Kelvin timeline. That is now a separate dimension because the events of the 2009 Star Trek movie have altered it, much like the Mirror Universe was altered by the changed events of First Contact. The Sphere Builders have technology that allows them to view these different timelines and saw that in the 26th century, their incursion into our universe would be stopped by the Federation. So they manipulated a race known as the Xindi to attack Earth by telling them that eventually Earth and the Federation would destroy them, which was not true. And in fact, the Xindi were part of the Federation alliance that ultimately defeated the Sphere Builders. After the Xindi attack Earth and kill over 7 million people, the NX-01 Enterprise is sent on a mission to find them. Along the way, and with the guidance of Daniels, a temporal agent of the Federation, Captain Archer and the crew learn of this plot and are able to convince many members of the Xindi Council of the truth, which allows them to work together to defeat the Sphere Builders in their time by destroying the spheres and stopping the larger Xindi weapon. If that story sounds cool to you, you should watch Star Trek Enterprise, because it's a way better show than most people give it credit for, and the third season is one of the best seasons of any Trek show. Also, most streaming services allow you to skip the intro, so if you don't want to listen to the theme song, you don't have to. But I love Where My Heart Will Take Me, and I prefer the slower version. In the Star Trek Online game, the Sphere Builder's story is fleshed out a bit more, and they are shown to be a species originally from the Delta Quadrant, named the Tutarians. Thousands of years before the events of Star Trek, they were involved in a war with races in the Alpha and Beta quadrants against the Iconians, who are responsible for gateways seen first in the Next Generation episode, Contagion. These gateways were trans-dimensional portals that allowed for instantaneous travel across light years of space. During the war, the Sphere Builders' physiology became altered so they can no longer exist in our space, which began their plot against this universe. So, what do we know about the burn so far? There are a lot of loose threads out there, and I will try and touch on most of them, but if I miss anything, let me know in the comments. First, we know that it was an event that made dilithium inert, which caused any running warp engine to explode, and we just learned that this event was not instantaneous, that it went out like a wave from a source location. All of this was confirmed in the 7th episode and in the trailer for Episode 8. Also, there's a strange song that many people seem to be aware of, which is peculiar because with every planet being basically cut off from one another, it's curious that so many different people know this melody. We heard this in the first few episodes of the season, but it's not been touched on since. Plus, we know that even before this event, dilithium was starting to run out, and that the Federation as well as other factions were trying to develop another solution to using it. The Federation were in development on a project known as SB-19 that was intended to replace the need for dilithium as a means for space travel, but ultimately, The Vulcans protested its use, believing it to be too dangerous, and when the burn occurred, the Vulcans believed this project was the cause, and blamed the Federation for insisting on them continuing development. The burn occurred in 3069, which is 120 years before the events of this season, and about 20 years before the furthest events ever shown on screen in Star Trek before this season of Discovery. I bring this up because time travel is also going to be involved in my theory, so it is important to note this. Okay, so why is time travel important to the burn? Star Trek crews have traveled in time many times before, but the crew of the Discovery is the first crew to travel forwards in time. Every other crew, when they time traveled, went to the past and then returned to their present time. Even when Captain Archer went to the future, he was brought there by Daniels, so it was Daniels bringing him to his present more so than Archer traveling to the future. This is important because it means that Discovery did not travel to a fixed point in history. They traveled toward a possible future, which means that Discovery can go back in time again and alter this time period without affecting the events of what we have seen in prior Star Trek shows. I believe that is specifically why the writers chose to have the burn occur 20 years after the inclusion of Daniels into the Star Trek timeline. It allows the Discovery the option to time travel again after the events shown in Enterprise, but before the burn event. But what part could the Sphere Builders play in all this, besides them and others being the reason time travel has now been outlawed? This is a race of beings that can see alternate timelines. So what if, when they lost their battle against the crew of Jonathan Archer's Enterprise, they hatched another plan that involved them traveling to another time and weakening the Federation again before taking over? It stands to reason that while looking at other timelines, they saw the possibility of Control taking over the universe as well. So they knew that Discovery had to complete its mission in order for them to attack. They also knew they had to wait for time travel to be outlawed, so there would be no more temporal agents for the Federation, which has now been achieved as far as we know. Another clue to this may be the final episode of the third season of Enterprise titled 0 Hour, where at one point all the spheres that were built are destroyed using a subspace signal. It seems that this is what the source of the burn was as well, so it is conceivable that the Sphere Builders applied the same technology to their weapon to make dilithium inert that was part of the technology we already saw them have. It is also possible that the sphere that merged its data with the Discovery is from its culture, as the Star Trek Online game shows their race as being thousands of years old. The graphic for the SB-19 project also looks very similar to the subspace vortexes that the Xindi used and was technology probably given to them by the Sphere Builders. So it may have been the Vulcans' intrusion into subspace that allowed the Sphere Builders to once again cross over into our universe, Stranger Things style. The project is in fact named SB-19. Maybe SB is a clue that the technology stems from the Sphere Builders. I've also been seeing the number 3 come up a lot this season on Discovery, and perhaps this is a hint that the main villain of Season 3 of Discovery was also the main villain of the third season of another Star Trek crew, the original Enterprise. Well, that's just my crazy theory, but you let me know, what did I miss? I would really love for this show to tie back to Star Trek Enterprise, because as I mentioned, I really think that show gets a bad rap, and if the Discovery's producers want to connect with the established fan base, creating a strong link to the canonical beginnings of Star Trek would be a smart move. I'd be really surprised if time travel did not come into play again this season or soon after, and I think that may be the reason the Discovery in the short trek Calypso looks a bit different than the one we see now. I really think the Iconian Gateways are going to be brought into the storyline at some point, as they were a major inclusion in the online game and have yet to really make the same impact in Alpha Canon. But let me know in the comments if you like this theory or you have any of your own. I would also like to thank Tom F. for dropping a comment on a video a couple weeks ago and kind of setting me down this rabbit hole. Keep putting your theories in the comments, and if I like one and do a video, I will give you credit just like I did here. Thank you for watching. I am really excited to see where this season of Star Trek Discovery goes, and I will see you next time on What Did I Miss?